My name's Brandon and this is Nickelodeon Video Game History, a show where I take a look back on all of the video games based on Nickelodeon shows and retrospectively review them. Last week we said goodbye to the Wild Thornberrys and the OG Rugrats series. This week it's Rocket Power's turn for a farewell. Nickelodeon Video Game History is really entering a period of transition. Those three shows have dominated the lineup for a while now, but going forward into this next period it's going to be much more about SpongeBob, Jimmy Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents. Released on August 30, 2003, Zero Gravity Zone was exclusive to the Game Boy Advance, but it wasn't initially meant to be that way. A lot of people don't know this, but there was actually supposed to be a home console version, allegedly for all three of the platforms at the time. For currently unknown reasons, it was cancelled. This would have been a game lost to time thanks to its cancellation, but in September of 2009, an alpha version of the game went up for auction. It was won by an internet user who released screenshots and video footage, giving us a peek behind the curtain. I'm utterly enthralled by lost versions of never released games. Nickelodeon actually has at least 3 instances of this happening across their history. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I've started working on a documentary about CatDog saving Mean Bob, the first ever cancelled and lost Nickelodeon game. Keep an eye out for that coming soon, you definitely won't want to miss some of the info I found. The home console version of Zero Gravity Zone was being developed by Visionscape Interactive, a developer who specialised in all sorts of extreme sports games at the time. As for the developer of the game that was actually released, we've got our old friends Ultron back for yet another appearance. Regular viewers of video game history will have seen them pop up for Robot Rampage, Hey Arnold the Movie, Enter the Cleft, and Kaznapt. They've got plenty more Nick games to come too. They'll develop no less than 8 future Nickelodeon games covering a bunch of franchises. I actually liked Robot Rampage, Kaznapt, and Enter the Cleft, while Hey Arnold wasn't terrible. You could definitely have much worse developers in charge of your licensed game than Ultron. That's why it's a bit of a shock to see its average review score sit at a 5.9. Even the licensed games I really enjoy don't seem to do well with reviewers though. Let's drop in and see whether Rocket Power's Zero Gravity Zone wipes out. As Tony Hawk became a pop culture icon and the series of games bearing his name grew in popularity, there were plenty of attempts to really cash in on the brand. There was an awful animated film, an idea for a Space Jam spin-off starring Tony that was shelved because of back-in-action flopping, and of course an expansion of the home console games into the handheld space. While the pessimist inside you may scoff at a GBA version of a game that seems designed entirely for the capabilities of a home console, these titles were actually critical darlings. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on the GBA has a 9.5 on Metacritic, and the sequels have a 9.0 and an 8.5. Developed by Vicarious Visions, that team was somehow able to take the magic of the Pro Skater series and shrink it down so it could fit into your pocket, while seemingly not losing any of the charm. Surprisingly, while Rocket Power seems primed for just cloning the Pro Skater formula, none of the games ever really did that. Zero Gravity Zone on the GBA was the only game to attempt it. These are mighty big boots to fill, but it actually gives off a great first impression. The first thing you'll be drawn towards is the tutorial, particularly if you've never taken on a handheld half-pipe like me. This might be one of the most comprehensive and well put together tutorials I've seen for a game like this. Ultron have essentially broken down every mechanic in the game into bite-sized lessons. You'll quickly learn the basics, and after roughly 5 minutes, you feel confident to charge ahead. Because of the GBA's limitations, certain alterations needed to be made to make skating work. One such example is that you're always moving forward. Your character will automatically move unless you hold down on the D-pad, which brings you to a stop. Obviously, left and right will make your rider turn. B button is your ollie, as well as increasing your movement speed when held down. Pressing L will change your stance, D-pad plus L will do a flip trick while in the air, while D-pad plus R will do a grab trick. You can grind, duck, and you can do lip tricks as well, which I had a hard time getting to work consistently. As you string all these moves together, a bar in the top right corner will fill. This is your rocket gauge, and when it's ready it allows you to perform special tricks that grant you a bigger score. Essentially, it's Tony Hawk, and as I said, it makes a great first impression. Ultron have seemingly replicated the Pro Skater formula nicely here. Where it really falls flat is in how it controls. I've never played the GBA Pro Skater games, so I'm unaware if it has the same issues, but controlling the rocket crew never feels fun. To be completely honest with you guys, I feel like I suck at this game. Skating games have never really been my thing, so I'm far from being a master here. No doubt my natural abilities have at least slightly impacted my thoughts towards Zero Gravity Zone. But I think a large part of why I feel so bad at this game is the controls. I'm adamant that they're not good. It all starts with the basic turning controls. It's so touchy, just tapping left or right pretty much sends your character into a tailspin. Lining anything up feels like a massively tough task, and while I felt myself getting better and better as the game went on, it never evolved to the stage where I was enjoying it. Additionally, stringing tricks together feels really tough to do in a satisfying way. I did find a way to string together massive scores, I'll touch on that later, but playing the game the way it was intended is once again unsatisfying. I think this comes from the pocket-sized nature of the game combined with the control layout of the GBA. Certain games just aren't made to be played on certain platforms, and that certainly feels like what happened here. The inspiration from Pro Skater runs deep in Zero Gravity Zone. Your main focus of the single player career mode is completing a bunch of missions across different levels. When you jump into the mode, you get to choose between the regular Rocket Gang as well as Lars, which was a strange addition. Like, why is he the only non-main character from the show to be included? Obviously, I picked him for my career. You're then dropped into a little overworld type screen where you can enter the different levels, enter passwords and edit your stats and customize your board in the shop. To do this costs money, which, you guessed it, is earned via completing missions. Jump into an actual level and again, you're hit in the face with just how much this game is a recreation of Pro Skater. In every level you're given a list of missions you have to complete, with a 4-minute timer ticking down. Thankfully, you don't have to complete all missions in one go, so you can chip away at the specific objectives. The missions are all very Tony Hawk, featuring stalwarts like collecting a bunch of letters to spell a word, getting yourself to hard to reach places of the level through tricks and such, and of course nailing a high score. None of this is new or unique. If you've played a Pro Skater game, even if it wasn't in the handheld series, you've experienced this before. Unlocking new levels is directly tied to completing missions. You have to complete every last objective before you're allowed to move on. I was pretty intimidated by this, mostly because I sucked and wasn't confident I'd be able to string together high scores. I was genuinely worried I'd be stuck in the first level for this whole review. Not quite, I ended up stuck in this second level, but I'll touch on that later. Quickly, I found a couple of ways to really abuse the systems at play here to rack up high scores. First off, grinding is such a reliable way to rack up a high score. Find a lengthy grind section, repeat that to death, and you'll go pretty far. The second workaround can be massively abused, and honestly, it sort of renders the entire game pointless. I quickly discovered that it's impossible to mess up a trick if you just do a basic ollie. Going off ramps and stuff has a strong chance of you crashing and burning, or just straight up not being able to direct your skater in the direction you want them to go. Doing tricks while on the ground is impossible to mess up and easy to quickly spam. I was literally just mashing the controller, and not only was I doing tricks insanely fast, but most of the time the game was stringing the tricks together and I was getting added combo bonuses. I was able to get hundreds of thousands of points in a single 4-minute session by doing this. It renders the skating pointless. Why would I try and play the game properly when it's more effective, and dare I say it feels more natural to do this? Without having really tight skating controls, Zero Gravity Zone turns into an awkward 3D platformer where you have to collect items that are scattered about. The appeal of this type of game drops to zero when that's the crux of the gameplay. However, like I mentioned, I did get stuck. In the second level, you're tasked with grabbing letters to spell Toy Box. The X is placed over this grind rail and the game wants you to jump off it and grab the letter. No matter what I tried, I could not get my skater to jump in that direction. It just wouldn't budge. I thought this wouldn't be a big deal. The game has a password system, so I'll just grab the password for the next section and move on. Unfortunately, none of the passwords exist online, except for the password that just unlocks everything in the game, marking every single mission as completed in the process. You can't replay missions in this game, so that password wasn't of much use to me. Unlike a lot of Nick platformers I've played with passwords, this game doesn't show the password on screen when you complete a level, meaning I couldn't just watch a long play and grab one from there. Even if that was possible, there's only one complete playthrough of this game on the internet. As far as the damn World Wide Web is concerned, Rocket Power's Zero Gravity Zone barely exists. So I settled for the unlocks everything password and decided to just skate around the later levels. Eventually you do unlock a couple of snowboarding levels. These play and control identically to the skating, but still I think it's a pretty neat way to put a new coat of paint on the game. Each level also has a bonus level where you seem to skate around to get more cash. I have no idea how this is unlocked because it's not documented on the internet, just like the passwords. While my playthrough was kneecapped by this game being too obscure for its own good, I could imagine it wouldn't be a very long experience. Looking at the listed missions for each of the game's 8 levels, they all seem to be things you'd accomplish relatively quickly. Another aspect adding to the feeling of Zero Gravity Zone being quite light on content is how small the levels are. On your first run through a course, you'll feel like you've seen the entire level from top to bottom, identified where basically all of the items are, and feel like you're almost ready to move on. The only reason you'll be stuck in a level is because you physically can't make a jump or something, rather than being stumped as to what you're supposed to do for one of the missions. My biggest issue with the levels is how distinctly un-Rocket Power-like they seem. They all have a very specific theme, like Ghost House, Toyland, Old West, that sort of thing. It's a pretty natural design choice for games, but it's out of place for Rocket Power. Rocket Power was never really fantastical in nature, so the choice to make levels have these really out there themes is crazy. It feels like something you'd see in a Rugrats game where the babies' imaginations are running wild. It almost seems like this game was created before Altron had the Rocket Power license, then some Rocket Power stuff was shoehorned in when they got it. This is actually something Altron had done before. Robot Rampage is technically not even a Dexter's Lab game, seeing as it was a reskin of Elevator Action EX for release in the US. But hey, if you ever wanted to defile King Tut's tomb by doing sick grinds with Rocket Power characters, here's your chance. I don't have any real hate towards Zero Gravity Zone. I don't think it's a good game, but it's not egregious in any of its flaws. Honestly, the game's just a victim of being too ambitious for its platform. Again, I've never played the actual Tony Hawk versions of this, but I can't imagine I'd enjoy them much more. To me, these kinds of skate games don't work when you give them the demake treatment. It strips out too much of what makes Tony Hawk's Pro Skater an iconic series. It's worth checking out for those of you with a morbid curiosity about what a Tony Hawk GBA clone would look like, but beyond that, there isn't much else here. Maybe with a little bit more time and polish, Altron could have got the skating to a position where the game was enjoyable. Seems like a big task to me, but who knows. Next time I'll be looking at Jimmy Neutron Jet Fusion for both the GBA and home consoles. I have decidedly not had a blast with Jimmy's first video game outings. The 2 movie games were bad, and the less said about Jimmy Negatron, the better. At the bare minimum, I'm hoping one of these 2 titles can clear the staggeringly low bar set so far. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl is also just 1 month away, so to make sure you catch these reviews, hit the subscribe button.